The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled like a disco ball gone wrong. High Chancellor Vex Starweaver sat on his ridiculously oversized floating throne, trying his best to look important while simultaneously attempting not to sneeze. The crystalline dust from the Dominion representatives always made his nose twitch. "Order! Order in the Council!" Vex's voice boomed through the chamber, though half the representatives were already asleep. "We gather here today to address the most pressing matter facing our civilization." A collective groan echoed through the chamber. The last most pressing matter had been about regulating the length of ceremonial tentacle ribbons. "The human problem," Vex announced, pausing for dramatic effect. Admiral Kraz Shadowmend, the Crystalline Dominion's military leader, rose from his seat. His crystalline form caught the light, sending rainbow reflections dancing across the walls. "With all due respect, Chancellor, these humans are not just a problem. They're a catastrophe waiting to happen." "Oh, please," muttered Council member Zara Stormweaver under her breath. "The only catastrophe here is your fashion sense." Several nearby representatives snickered. Kraz projected a holographic display showing human expansion patterns. "Look at this madness. They're colonizing worlds at an unprecedented rate. And their methods? Chaotic. Unpredictable. They're not following any of our sacred expansion protocols." "You mean they're not paying your ridiculous expansion fees?" Zara spoke up, louder this time. Her silver skin shimmed with barely contained amusement. "They built a space station out of shipping containers." Kraz practically screeched. "Shipping containers! And it works better than our crystalline architectures that took millennia to perfect." Vex raised a hand, his 12 fingers splaying in the traditional gesture for silence. "The Crystalline Dominion's concerns are noted, though I must point out that the Humans' Container Station 9 does have an excellent coffee shop. That's exactly the problem." Kraz slammed his crystalline appendage on the podium, sending sharp pings echoing through the chamber. "They're spreading their influence through beverages and entertainment. 3 of my own officers requested Earth vacation time last month." "Vacation? We don't even have that concept." "Perhaps that's the real problem," Zara suggested, examining her color-shifting nails. Vex cleared his throat, which sounded like a dying hover engine. "The Council recognizes that immediate action must be taken. Therefore, I am authorizing a full investigation into human activities. We must understand their true nature before making any decisions." "I volunteer the Dominion's best investigator," Kraz said quickly, too quickly. "Commander Lyra Novabloom will handle this assignment personally." Zara's eyes narrowed. She knew Lyra's reputation, the most decorated investigator in the Dominion's history, known for her ruthless efficiency. But something about Kraz's eager volunteering set off warning bells in her mind. "Very well," Vex declared, trying to stifle another sneeze. "Commander Novabloom will observe and report on human activities. This meeting is adjourned. And someone please do something about this crystalline dust. My sinuses can't take another emergency session." As the chamber emptied, Zara lingered, watching Kraz's satisfied expression. Something wasn't right here, and she intended to find out what. But first, she needed a coffee from Container Station 9. At least the humans got that part of civilization right. Commander Lyra Novabloom stood before her mirror, frowning at her newly acquired human disguise. The genetic modification had turned her crystalline form into something disturbingly fleshy. "Look at these arms," she muttered to her reflection. "They wobble. How do humans get anything done with appendages that wobble?" The briefing packet from Admiral Kraz sat on her desk, containing what had to be the most ridiculous intelligence reports she'd ever read. Humans apparently spent hours watching moving pictures about impossible scenarios, voluntarily consumed mind-altering beverages called energy drinks, and most bafflingly, kept small predators in their homes as pets. "Computer, replay Admiral Kraz's mission directives," Lyra commanded, still poking at her new skin with morbid fascination. "Mission parameters," the computer droned. "Infiltrate human society, document their weaknesses, assess their threat level, and most importantly, discover how they make their liquid sustenance called coffee. The Admiral added a personal note. Bring back samples. Lyra rolled her eyes. She'd never understood the growing coffee obsession among her people. The crystalline dominion had survived for 10,000 years without needing liquid refreshments, though she had to admit the scent from her preliminary research was intriguing. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Enter! Her assistant, a young crystal form named Pike, stumbled in carrying a stack of data crystals. Commander, your Earth wardrobe has arrived, though I must say their clothing concepts are most confusing. How so? Pike held up something called sweatpants. These are pants that encourage sweating, and this. He lifted another item. A jumper that doesn't actually jump? Humans seem to have a peculiar relationship with accurate labeling. Lyra snatched the clothes away. Focus, Pike. What's my cover story? You're Dr. Luna Nova, a visiting researcher studying human social structures. Your credentials have been planted in their primitive digital systems, though... Pike hesitated. What? Well, according to our latest intelligence, humans have this thing called social media. You're supposed to have something called an Instagram account to be believable. We took the liberty of creating one for you. You now have 347 followers and have posted several pictures of your breakfast. Lyra stared at him. I haven't even eaten breakfast here yet. AI-generated images, Commander. Very convincing ones of something called avocado toast. Apparently it's crucial for your demographic. Rubbing her temples, Lyra grabbed her mission tablet. Any other last-minute cultural insights I should know about? Yes. Humans have this strange greeting ritual. They press their right hands together and move them up and down. It's called a handshake, but don't do it too firmly. We've already broken 3 practice robots trying to get the pressure right. Wonderful, Lyra muttered. Anything else? Just one more thing. Pike looked nervous. Humans express emotions through facial movements called smiles. You might want to practice in the mirror. Your current attempt looks more like a threat display. Lyra turned back to the mirror, attempting to curve her lips upward. The result was terrifying. This is beneath me, she growled. I'm the Dominion's top investigator, reduced to practicing facial expressions like a juvenile. If it helps, Pike offered. I heard humans often fake their smiles too. That doesn't help at all. Lyra gathered her supplies, already dreading this assignment. At least it can't get worse than this. Pike cleared his throat. Actually, Commander, you're booked on something called a budget airline to reach your destination. Lyra's scream of frustration could be heard 3 decks away. Somewhere in his office, Admiral Kraz smiled, sipping his contraband coffee. Phase 1 was going exactly as planned. The spaceport terminal of New Shanghai buzzed with the kind of chaos that made Lyra's newly acquired human skin crawl. A child zoomed past on something called a hover scooter, nearly clipping her legs. The security drone chasing after them was apologizing, instead of implementing immediate disciplinary measures. Welcome to Earth Gateway 7, the AI announcement chirped overhead. Please report any temporal anomalies to the nearest customer service representative, and no, we cannot send you back in time to catch your connecting flight. Lyra clutched her tablet, scanning the crowd for her contact. The dossier said he would be wearing a maintenance uniform and... there he was. Mason Rodriguez, spaceport engineer, currently arguing with a vending machine. Listen here, you overpriced snack dispenser, Mason was saying, giving the machine a gentle pat. We've been through this before. You can't keep eating my credits without giving me my chocolate bar. We had an agreement. The machine made a series of apologetic beeps and dispensed 3 chocolate bars. See, communication is key. Mason turned, noticed Lyra staring, and flashed a grin that made her internal crystalline structure vibrate strangely. You must be Dr. Nova. The temp AI mentioned you'd be arriving, though it didn't mention you'd look like you're about to face a firing squad. Lyra quickly adjusted her expression, remembering Pike's smile training. Yes, hello. You must be Engineer Rodriguez. She thrust out her hand for the dreaded handshake ritual. Whoa there! Mason laughed, gently adjusting her grip. No need to crush my fingers. And please, call me Mason. Only my mother and angry supervisors call me Engineer Rodriguez. He tossed her one of the chocolate bars. Peace offering for being late. Traffic was brutal. Some genius teleported a whale into the hover lane again. Lyra caught the bar reflexively, staring at it in confusion. This wasn't in any of her briefings. Was this a test? A trap? Some kind of primitive truth serum? It's not going to bite, Mason said, already unwrapping his own. Though fair warning, it might make you temporarily forget about your problems. Chocolate's funny that way. Before she could respond, an alarm blared through the terminal. Red lights flashed as a massive cargo container broke free from its restraints, hurtling toward a group of schoolchildren on a field trip. Lyra's training kicked in. She calculated trajectories, recognized the impossibility of reaching the children in time, and prepared to document the tragic failure of human safety protocols. But Mason was already moving. He pulled out what looked like a modified gravity manipulator, strictly against regulation specs, she noted, and fired it at the container. The beam hit the metal box, turning its deadly momentum into bubbles. Hundreds of rainbow-colored bubbles floated down around the laughing children, who seemed to think this was all part of the entertainment. Anti-gravity bubbles, Mason explained, tucking the device away with a wink. Kids love 'em, and they're a lot better than watching several tons of cargo make a mess. Had to modify the emergency protocols a bit, hope you don't mind. Lyra's mind raced. This was impossible. The official reports clearly stated that humans were reckless, uncaring about safety, and technologically primitive. Yet here was Mason, casually defying both physics and her expectations. That device, she said carefully, it's not standard issue. Nope, Mason grinned. Built it myself after the third cargo incident. The standard stuff works fine for normal days, but you've got to get creative when things go sideways. Speaking of which, he pulled out a tablet, showing a complex series of modifications to the spaceport safety systems. Since you're here to study our operations, want to see how we keep this beautiful mess running? Lyra found herself nodding, despite her mission protocols screaming at her to maintain emotional distance. The schematics on his tablet were elegant in their chaos, solving problems she didn't even know existed. Great! Mason started walking, still talking animatedly. Fair warning, though, the maintenance AI has developed a sense of humor, and it's terrible. Like, why did the photon refuse to check its luggage? Because it was traveling light kind of terrible. As Lyra followed him, she discreetly sent a message to Admiral Kraz. Initial observations inconclusive. Require extended study period. She wasn't sure what surprised her more. The fact that she was already deviating from mission parameters, or that she had just caught herself almost smiling at Mason's stupid photon joke. The chocolate bar remained clutched in her hand, slowly melting, just like her preconceptions about humans. 3 weeks into her investigation, Lyra sat in her temporary quarters, staring at her data tablet in horror. The encryption on Admiral Kraz's private communications had finally cracked, revealing a truth that made her wish she'd never looked. Project Crystal Clarity, she read aloud, her voice shaking. Phase 1, infiltration complete. Phase 2, fabricate evidence of human aggression. Phase 3. Her voice caught. Phase 3, release the resonance wave. The technical specifications that followed were clear. The resonance wave wouldn't just affect humans. It would shatter the molecular bonds of any species that wasn't crystalline in nature. Billions would die, transformed into beautiful, lifeless crystal gardens. A message notification pinged. Mason asking if she wanted to grab coffee at Container Station 9. She'd been avoiding him for days, ever since she'd discovered the first hints of Kraz's plan. Every smile, every casual conversation now felt like betrayal. Hey, you okay? Another message from Mason. You've been acting weird since that maintenance inspection. If it's about the rubber duck collection in the quantum core, I can explain. Lyra almost laughed, then caught herself. This was exactly how they got to you. These humans with their absurd humor and their inexplicable kindness. Even now, knowing she was supposed to be gathering evidence against them, Mason had been nothing but open, sharing engineering secrets that would make the Dominion's tech division weep with envy. Her tablet pinged again, but this time it was from Pike. Urgent. Admiral Kraz advancing timeline. Resonance wave device already in position. Activation scheduled during upcoming Galactic Council session. All operatives ordered to evacuate within 48 hours. The room spun. She hadn't bought them enough time. She hadn't. A knock at her door made her jump. "Dr. Nova, it's Mason. Brought you some of that triple-shot espresso you like. And before you ask, no, I didn't let the maintenance AI improve it this time. Nobody needs coffee that can achieve sentience." Lyra stared at the door, then at the tablet showing the genocide plans, then at her own hands. Still flesh-coloured, but hiding their true crystalline nature. The conflict inside her felt like it would tear her apart. "Coming." She quickly composed herself and opened the door. Mason stood there, holding 2 coffee cups and wearing that ridiculous grin that always made her crystalline core resonate at an uncomfortable frequency. But today, something was different. His eyes were serious. "So," he said casually, walking past her into the room, "when were you going to tell me about being made of crystal?" Lyra froze. "What?" "Oh, come on." Mason sat down, taking a sip of his coffee. "Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Our quantum scanners picked up your crystalline structure the day you arrived. We just figured you had your reasons for the disguise. Plus, you keep humming at exactly 432 Hertz when you're nervous. Classic crystal being tell." "You knew?" Lyra collapsed into her chair. "This whole time?" "Well, yeah. The rubber ducts in the quantum core. They're actually harmonic dampeners. Been using them to block long-range crystalline scanning. You're welcome, by the way." He paused. "Though I got to admit, we didn't know about the whole turn everyone into crystal gardens thing until yesterday. That's new. Points for creativity, I guess, but major deductions for the whole genocide angle." Lyra's mind raced. "How did you intercept Kraz's communications?" Mason grinned. "That encryption was tough. Took our AI almost 6 hours to crack it. It was very proud of itself. Wouldn't stop making crystal puns for days." "Why are you telling me this? Why aren't I in custody?" Mason's expression softened. "Because in 3 weeks, I've watched you slowly fall in love with humanity's chaos. You spent 4 hours yesterday helping redesign our emergency protocols. You named the coffee machine AI Bob. And most importantly, you've had dozens of chances to harm us, and instead, you've only made things better." Lyra felt something wet on her cheeks. Tears. Another annoying human feature she'd apparently acquired. "I have to stop them," she whispered. "We," Mason corrected. "We have to stop them, but first—" He pulled out a data crystal. "Want to see how many of your people actually support this plan? Turns out, recording everything in crystal format makes data really easy to access, if you know how to ask nicely." As Lyra reached for the crystal, her hand shaking, she realized 3 things. First, she had severely underestimated humanity. Second, she had never actually filed a single negative report about them. And third, most surprisingly, she had somehow developed an addiction to triple-shot espressos. "Mason," she said quietly, "I think it's time I showed you what I really look like." "Finally," he grinned. "Bob's been dying to see if you're as sparkly as he imagined." The maintenance shaft of Container Station 9 wasn't exactly where Lyra had planned to reveal her true form, but assassins tended to ruin carefully laid plans. Especially assassins armed with sonic disruptors designed specifically to shatter human bones. "You know," Mason panted as they ran, "when I said I wanted to see the real you, I was thinking more like over coffee, not during a high-speed chase through the station's recycling system." A blast of sonic energy hit the wall behind them, leaving a perfectly crystallized circle of frozen air. Less talking, more running. Lyra shoved Mason through a maintenance hatch. her genetic camouflage flickering under the stress. "Commander Nova Bloom!" The assassin's voice echoed through the shaft. "Your orders were clear. The human knows too much. Stand aside and let me complete my mission." Mason looked at Lyra, his eyes widening as patches of her skin began to crystallize. "Commander?" "Oh, shut up," she growled, pulling out her modified gravity manipulator. "Yes, I'm a commander. Yes, I was sent to spy on you. And yes, I make terrible life choices. Can we discuss my career failures later?" The assassin, a towering crystalline warrior, dropped down from above. His form shifted in the station's light, making him almost invisible. "The Admiral is most disappointed, Commander. You were our best agent. Now look at you, compromised by these primitives and their coffee." "Hey," Mason protested, "our coffee is amazing, thank you very much." "Not helping," Lyra muttered. Then louder, "Stand down, Sergeant Prism. That's an order." "You lost the right to give orders when you failed to report for evacuation." Prism raised his weapon. "Though I must admit, I'm curious. What did these humans do to corrupt you so thoroughly?" Lyra felt her camouflage finally give way, her true crystalline form emerging like a butterfly from a very confused cocoon. The maintenance shaft filled with rainbow refractions as her natural facets caught the light. Mason whistled. "Okay, that's actually pretty cool, though you might want to dim it down a bit. You're kind of giving away our position." "Really?" Lyra turned to him, exasperated. "I'm literally revealing my true alien form, and you're critiquing my light refraction." "Well, someone has to. And may I say, you look much more comfortable without all that skin?" Prism made a sound like breaking glass. "This is exactly what I mean, this banter, this ridiculous informality. You've gone native, Commander." "No," Lyra said softly. "I've gone sane." She raised her gravity manipulator. "Mason, remember that stupid modification you made to the cargo bay bubbles?" Mason grinned. "The one that turns solid matter into— Oh, duck!" Lyra fired. The beam hit Prism square in the chest, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then his crystalline form began to vibrate. What is this?" Prism looked down in horror as his perfect crystal structure began to transform. "Fun fact about crystalline beings," Lyra announced. "We really, really hate being turned into glitter." With a sound like a disco ball in a blender, Sergeant Prism exploded into a cloud of sparkling dust. The maintenance shaft looked like a unicorn had sneezed in it. "That," Mason said after a moment, "was both the most beautiful and most disturbing thing I've ever seen. Also, I think some of him got in my coffee." Lyra slumped against the wall, her crystal form humming with exhaustion. "I just committed treason by turning a superior officer into craft supplies. My career is officially over." "Look on the bright side," Mason offered, brushing glitter off his uniform. "You're literally glowing right now. Like, actually glowing. Is that normal? Should I be concerned?" "It's fine. It happens when we're stressed or caffeinated. Speaking of which—" She pushed away from the wall. "We need to get to the council session. Kraz's resonance wave device is probably going to be a problem, yes." Mason was already pulling up station schematics on his tablet. "But first, quick question. Does your true form still like coffee? Because Bob just upgraded himself again and claims he can now make a latte that transcends dimensions." Lyra stared at him. Here they were, covered in glitter that used to be an assassin, minutes away from a potential genocide, and he was asking about coffee preferences. And somehow, that seemed perfectly logical. "Yes," she said, feeling her crystal structure hum at a frequency she was beginning to recognize as happiness. "But first, we need to save your species, and several others." "Excellent prioritizing, see? You're getting better at this human thing already. Listen up, everyone." Mason stood before the most unusual gathering container Station 9 had ever seen. The station's conference room, usually reserved for mind-numbing safety briefings, now hosted representatives from 12 different species. "Thanks to Commander Nova Bloom's intelligence, We have exactly 6 hours before Kraz activates the resonance wave. Lyra, still adjusting to being openly crystalline, watched as Mason pulled up a holographic display. Her former assistant Pike huddled nearby, nervously shedding tiny crystal fragments. "So," a Voltarian ambassador crackled, their energy form flickering with skepticism, "we're supposed to trust a crystalline defector and a human whose main qualification is making good coffee?" "Actually," Bob the AI chimed in from a nearby speaker, "Mason's coffee is terrible. I just fix it when he's not looking." "Not helping, Bob," Mason muttered. "And I knew you were tampering with my recipes." Lyra stepped forward, her crystal form catching the light. "The evidence is irrefutable. I've transmitted copies of Kraz's plans to each of you. The resonance wave won't just affect humans. It will crystallize any non-crystalline life form in the galaxy." "But why?" A gelatinous blob wearing what appeared to be a formal top hat wobbled indignantly. What could they possibly gain? "Gardens," Pike spoke up, his voice small. "Perfect, unchanging crystal gardens. No chaos, no evolution, no coffee." A horrified gasp went through the room. Even the blob's top hat seemed to droop. "Okay, here's the plan." Mason activated another hologram. "We've identified the resonance wave device's quantum signature thanks to Pike's inside knowledge. The problem is, it's protected by crystalline encryption that adapts faster than we can crack it." "Impossible to hack," the Voltarian ambassador hummed. "Which is why we're not going to hack it," Mason grinned. "We're going to throw a party." Silence fell over the room, broken only by Bob softly playing elevator music. "A party?" Lyra stared at him. "The fate of galactic civilization hangs in the balance, and your solution is to throw a party? Think about it." Mason's eyes sparkled with that familiar look that usually preceded either brilliance or disaster. "What's the one thing crystalline beings can't resist?" "Symmetry," Pike offered. "Geometric perfection," suggested another. "Close." Mason pointed to the ceiling. "Music, specifically harmonic resonance. Every crystal has a frequency that makes it sing. And thanks to our crystalline friends here, we know exactly what frequency the Dominion's leadership vibrates at." Understanding dawned on Lyra's face. "You want to use music as a weapon?" "Not a weapon," Mason corrected. "An invitation, Bob. Show them Project Disco." The hologram shifted to show schematics for what looked like the galaxy's largest sound system, integrated with quantum harmonics and... was that a disco ball? "We're going to broadcast a party across quantum channels," Mason explained. "A party with frequencies that will make every crystalline being want to dance. They won't be able to help themselves, and while they're distracted." "We steal the resonance device," Lyra finished, feeling her own crystal structure starting to hum with excitement. That's actually brilliant." "And completely insane," the Voltarian added. "I love it." Pike raised a timid hand. "But what music could possibly affect the entire crystalline dominion?" Bob's speaker crackled. "Leave that to me. I've been studying human music archives. Did you know there's something called funk that mathematically correlates to crystalline harmonic patterns? Also, I've composed a remix of classic Earth songs that I guarantee will make any crystal-based life form boogie." "Boogie?" Lyra asked. "Trust me," Mason patted her crystalline shoulder, sending pleasant vibrations through her structure. "You're going to love it. Now, who's ready to save the galaxy with the power of dance?" The room erupted in a chaos of voices, each species adding their own expertise to the plan. As Lyra watched them work together, she realized that this beautiful mess of cooperation and crazy ideas, this was exactly what Kraz feared, and exactly what made them strong. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like it. Where once stood the dignified silence of political procedure, now pulsed the unmistakable beats of Earth's greatest musical weapon, stayin' alive. Admiral Kraz, mid-speech about human containment, suddenly froze. His crystalline form began to vibrate in perfect harmony with the BGs. What is happening to me?" Now that Mason's voice boomed through the quantum speakers, is the power of disco. Across the chamber, crystalline beings began to move involuntarily, their structures resonating with Bob's carefully crafted frequency mix. Even the most stalwart Dominion guards found their formations dissolving into dance moves. "Stop this at once," Kraz commanded, his body betraying him with a perfect hustle step. "I order you to, is that earth, wind and fire?" "Sure is," Bob's voice echoed cheerfully. "September specifically, though I've added some quantum harmonics. You like? High Chancellor Vex, finally free from his crystalline dust allergies thanks to a human antihistamine, stood up. "Admiral Kraz, care to explain why you're doing the electric slide instead of activating your weapon?" "The resonance wave?" Kraz tried to reach for the controls, but his arms were too busy with choreographed movements. "No, you don't understand. This is for the greater good." "The greater good?" Lyra stepped into view, her crystal form sparkling under the emergency disco ball. "Was turning everyone into garden decorations really your idea of improvement?" Pike, showing unexpected courage, rolled out the evidence displays. "The Admiral's true plans, Council members. While we're all dancing, you might want to take a look." The non-crystalline Council members watched in amazement as their crystalline colleagues grooved involuntarily to Dancing Queen. The evidence was damning, made even more dramatic by the synchronized dance moves. "I believe," Vex announced, attempting to maintain dignity despite tapping his foot, "this calls for an immediate vote." "You can't vote," Kraz protested through a series of spins. "The Dominion, the purity of crystal. Why is everyone doing the YMCA?" Mason, entering with his signature grin, shrugged. "Because sometimes the best way to fight hatred is with really good music and really bad dancing. Lyra, care to do the honors?" Lyra approached Kraz, who was now doing a rather impressive moonwalk. "Admiral Kraz, by order of the Galactic Council and the newly formed Coalition of Free Peoples, you are hereby relieved of command, and your dance moves need work." As security led the still dancing Admiral away, the chamber erupted in cheers, and in the case of the crystalline beings, more dancing. "You know," Mason said, watching Lyra's crystal form shimmer with joy, "I think this calls for a real celebration." "Bob?" "Way ahead of you," the AI responded, transitioning smoothly into celebration by Cool and the gang. "And I've got another 1,000 songs queued up. This party's just getting started. And that's how humanity saved the galaxy. Not with weapons or warfare, but with music, coffee, and the unstoppable power of dancing badly together. Even the history books had to admit it was a pretty groovy solution."